Hello there and welcome to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue. We are all about using technology to solve everyday problems. And, of course, your host is none other than Mr. Iyer himself, an expert in all things SaaS and the digital world.
Welcome to the next episode of the Fractional Series.
Welcome to Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue, yet another episode, a part of our Fractional Series. Today we are thrilled to have Rajiv Vishwanathan with us, a seasoned fractional technology and product leader with over 25 years of global experience. Rajiv has been driving transformation and growth using technology across the US, APAC, Europe, and India. As a fractional CXO, he has helped numerous companies create value through data insights, innovation, and sustainable practices. When he is not revolutionizing business, Rajiv is a globe-trotting, having visited 30 countries and counting. So let's dive into the world of fractional leadership with our guest, Rajiv. Welcome, Rajiv, to the Fractional Series.
Thank you, Mahesh, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Almost felt like somebody else, and a warm hi to all the viewers.
Thank you very much. So let's start with this. Can you tell us more about your journey, right from full-time CXO to now looking to going ahead with a fractional technology and a product leader?
So in a career spanning 25 years across sort of various geos, various industries, I worked with large corporations, small corporations, startups. I worked through the gamut. And in that journey, I've also gone through sort of what I call the evolutionary food chain of fractionals, which is, to me, I think there's three stages. I think you start your fractionals, or at least for me, I first started and attempted fractionals way back, probably 2 decades ago, where I started it as a side hustle on the side of a full-time job. Just, for the interest, I was young, I could do with the money. I was happy to work 100 hours a week. My next foray into fractionals was when I was sort of in between jobs. I had, come off one company and I was trying to figure out where I was going next, and a couple of sort of part-time opportunities presented themselves. And so that was sort of another sort of step into the journey. And it wasn't on, and all of those things helped set up the thought process. So it's only now, in like the last 10 years, I think, that I've made the transition from moving away from big corporations, going independent, and genuinely begun a fractional executive in sort of the way the term's understood today. Through that journey, I've been steady with one firm for like 10 years, believe it or not, and it's going really well. I've also helped other niche companies. I started it when I was in Singapore at the time, and I think the real value proposition was to work with niche tech companies in the US and other places and help them get a foothold in Asia. And then from there on, once you entered the company, I expanded to other things like program management and then strategy, and in some cases business development, and all that it called for. So it's been an interesting journey all the way through. I think I'm on a one-way street now in terms of going fractional.
Why don't you explain more about your role in terms of you're a product and a technology leader? So what exactly do you do?
Yeah, so I broadly work in the areas of workflow management, automation, and data-driven transformation. That's more or less what I've done my entire career in different flavors. I've done it as a techie, I've done it as an architect, as a strategist and executive, as a business change leader. And so to me, I get excited about driving value for companies by being able to harness the power that's sitting in their data. Information's everywhere, and today it's exploding at a rate then higher than ever before, really. And it's exploding in various types of sources. Back in the day when I started my career, it was all which is, we've got a manual process, it's paper-based. How do we get it automated? To all the way from digitized to digital, which, and there's not a lot of people who might be aware of the difference, but digitization is taking something manual and automating it. Digital is fundamentally transforming the business and inside out to be able to derive value, to be able to drive innovation, capture new segments, all that sort of stuff. So that is sort of broadly the area I work in recent times, obviously, a lot of focus has shifted to AI-based platforms as the driver, as a natural fit for trying to extract value from data. And yeah, so that's sort of what my background is loosely.
In my fractional series, you're the first product and technology leader. So I'm sure the audience would want to know more and more. So you worked across various regions, US, APAC, Europe. How has the global experience shaped up your approach to technology leadership?
I think more than technology leadership, yes, but broadly, just I think it's transformed me as a person, just in terms of the deep cultural connects I now have with a number of different people across the globe, which is it's a very humbling, happy experience to try and learn that. Derive the commonalities in terms of where people want to go, coupled with, different work practices. It's allowed me as a leader then to be able to become a bridge across various different cultures. So when I've worked in large global organizations, or like right now when I work with teams around the world, I am able to use that experience to be able to stitch together cross-functional teams across different locations and be able to manage to make them work coherently, working through conflicts and all that sort of stuff. Cultural barriers are often some of the most biggest challenges in terms of cross-geographical teams.
Right.
And so that's where I think my experience served me really well.
I understand you touched upon very nicely about cross-functional team, managing teams remotely. I mean, as a CRO also, I manage team across different geographies, specifically in US and Europe. You have sales team, you have account executives. I'm sure. How do you balance yourself? Because sometimes, you rightly mentioned about culture. Technology, is primarily universal and there's no cultural, but the thought process is the same. So how do you tackle that challenge? Like, for example, language could be a barrier. The way they manage their business could be a barrier. Time management could be a barrier. How do you handle that as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's a good challenge, right? And it's an interesting challenge. And I don't think there is a fixed formula to it. It really depends on who you're working with and to try and figure out that common ground. I firmly believe in the concept of one team, right? When I put together a team, when I run an organization or whatever the case may be, there's one team, there's no hierarchy. Everybody's the same. Everybody gets a say. It's very open. It's very democratic. And I think that is a useful way of drawing out people. I think different cultures have different notions about speaking up, right? Like the notion of speaking up in the West is very different to Asia. And then if you go across to Eastern Europe or even India, it is vastly different. And it is just about trying to understand that, appreciate that. Language can be a challenge at times. I had to do a presentation in Japan once where I was delivering my statement, and then I had a very diligent, well-minded translator who was delivering it in the most flat monotone possible sentence. Not only did that cramp my style, but I also didn't know what he was saying. That was an interesting challenge. But I work with a lot of Eastern Europeans. Their approach to technology is very much give me a spec, I go do the job, as opposed to somebody from Europe who's more interested in, hey, what's the strategy? Where are we going with this? And yeah, and I think you need all sorts. I think a team needs all sorts and all sorts of skills. And it's I truly relish the challenge of being able to put together teams like that and figure out the various differences and nuances and trying to get work done.
So you did mention very briefly again about challenges. So I want to go one step in and ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in establishing technology centers, and how did you overcome them?
So I've done 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I built them in different locations. I built in Singapore, I built one in Manila, I built one here, and they've all been different. The first 2 or 3 I built were where we were trying to grow within. I was in a large corporation driving sort of change and transformation, and we needed to set up some offshoring functions. And it was very different in terms of the budget, the scale, and everything. There was enough sort of cash getting pumped in by our friendly execs upstairs to go in, make a splash. The company had well-established partnerships. My most recent foray, which started out actually with my sort of a company I've been associated for a long term. And we transitioned from India, and I used it as an opportunity. Started in Singapore, and I used it as an opportunity to come back to India. And that was a wholly different challenge because we weren't starting with an established brand. We weren't starting with loads of cash getting pumped in. So we had to figure everything else out from the ground up, from office space and everything. But in terms of approach, I tend to look for the leadership first under me so that they can then help me build the organizational structure below them. And that's an approach that tends to work really well. The biggest challenge in establishing centers like that is to try and get the balance between being able to show value while you're constantly trying to build the team. Nobody's got the patience for you to say, hey, you need to give me 6 months. I'm going to go spend, X amount of dollars and build this wonderful team and then we'll be ready. And the answer is typically, well, no, I need to get something going in like weeks. So I think that is the challenge. I think the challenge is to try and make sure you can get that balance between the skills, the quality, and being able to scope your deliverables out so that you can start showing incremental value. And what I've observed is once you get past that initial hurdle of being able to get those couple of quick wins out there, then you start going away from being treated as a proof of concept. And suddenly everybody wants to get onto the bandwagon in terms of, hey, I think we could derive some serious strategic benefit from this. So yeah, I think it generally follows a pattern.
That's a lot of information for the listeners to digest. But again, when you're talking about technology, AI comes into picture, and today everything is about AI. Even smaller things is about AI. You as a technology and a product leader, what do you think of this AI, and where do you think it is heading? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that everything is AI makes me chuckle because it wasn't long ago when everything was cloud or everything was SOA based back in the day. So I mean, you've been around probably as long as I have to remember these times. Yes, I think there's a very clear space for AI. It is permeating more and more and more of our space. But AI is for areas where you would benefit from more cognitive like functions and where you need to derive analysis from a lot of data to be able to gain insight. It gives you the power of processing data, whether it's natural language processing or deep neural networks, to a degree that hasn't been seen before. I mean, it is truly groundbreaking what you can achieve. But at the same time, you've got to be careful with it. You've got to set guardrails around it. Something that can be that effective can go wrong very, very badly if you don't put the right sort of guardrails around it. Make sure you get bias out of the data. But it is not an answer to everything. There are, in my opinion, and there will continue to be an industry parallel to AI, which just relies on traditional sort of tasks and sort of a very structured sort of approach where you don't need to have that sort of intelligence into it. It's just a task. It just needs to be predicted. Where I think AI is going to go, and the jury's out on this. I think the right answer is who knows. But if I were to take a stab at it, I think it is going to end up becoming what's called a general purpose technology, right? And then for those that aren't aware, a general purpose technology is something that starts off as being something and pretty much later begins to dominate like literally every aspect of every industry. The advent of the PC is an example of that. The internet is an example of a general purpose technology. It started out as something and then now it's literally become everything about everything. And I think that's where AI is going to go, but it's going to have a lot of bumps getting there. The upfront cost of AI, and I think the industry is going through a bit of a struggle with coming down the hype cycle of saying, hang on a moment, I think this stuff's expensive, this stuff's complex, it's a black box. Gen AI isn't quite the magic bullet that we all thought it would be. I think it will become that in some time, but it needs to evolve to get to that point. Yeah, so I think, long and short of it, every solution in the world is going to have some form of AI. And it could be, I think the real power of AI is when it does the more sort of easy to process, simpler stuff, as opposed to the high end deep neural networks, which, the use cases for those become more and more complex to try and achieve. And then not a lot of people outside of the big tech giants to achieve that. But very simple things like predictive text in WhatsApp, or when you're trying to type a message, or when you're getting contextual search, which I think is one of the huge benefits of something like AI, rapidly giving you access to the kind of information you need. But then also, if you're capable enough to be able to get through the cycles and be able to derive insights in terms of predictions, I think that's another area where, for a very sort of, when the data is available, the patterns are finite, for lack of a better word, then AI is very powerful. But I'd like to think of it as augmented AI. There's a lot of talk about AI is going to take over, and humans are going to become redundant. And frankly, I think we're probably a century away from that. At a minimum. And I don't think it'll ever happen, to be honest, because AI works best when it is fitted with guardrails and it is fitted together with humans, offering the emotive judgments, the factors like empathy, which an AI is never going to be able to process, or just rational thinking. I mean, I'll give you an example. This morning. I was driving back, and I was relying on the direction from Google Maps. It's just that it's a place I know well. I could work out that the route it's sending me through is going to go through some serious back roads versus going the other way, which will take me 2 minutes more, but will stick to the main roads. And it's a very simple example of what I call augmented AI, which is not being a slave to the system, but working out a collaborative model. I think that, to me, is the real future of where I think AI will wind up. Sorry, that was a really long.
No, I think so. That was one of the best.
Subject I'm passionate about.
No, that's one of the best explanation of AI and AI I've heard in a long time. We could do in a complete session on AI. I think so. Your information, I loved what you said. You said AI is going to be the way of life. And I agree with you that in some years' time, just the way we are using an operating system or a PC or an internet, we require, without that, we can't function. A lot of things can't happen. So AI will become like that. It will be part of our ecosystem, I would say, of technology, that it is required. Without that, you can't move. Of course, you put it really well about how collaborative AI is going to be the future, and that's how it's going to be. Excellent. I loved it. And I mean, now I'm getting ideas that we could do a complete session on AI. So thanks for that. Let's get back to fractional,
Sure.
I want to understand why you believe the concept of fractional is beneficial in today's business landscape.
So, very good question. Without trying to sound like one of the many websites that are available on this topic, it's a simple story of economics and scale. The market has moved away from big monolithic players in the technology space to more leaner SaaS-based operators, app development, and startups and the likes. And this whole segment of the market is usually cash-strapped, have to be hyper innovative to compete. Speed to market is everything. Flexibility is everything. And simply cannot afford need the skills and the experience, but simply cannot afford a full-time technical executive, or any other field for that matter, legal for that matter, to drive that business forward. The cost of onboarding and the time frame is just too high. The entry barrier is too high. Versus it sort of tapers away to the other side as you go up the food chain in terms of larger corporations. I think it'll take a little bit longer to change the mindset in larger corporations of, I still need my full-time exec where I can see them every day, sort of thing. But it's these sorts of organizations which are proliferating all over the place. Fractionals are, by definition, highly qualified, highly experienced, highly skilled, are actually making a personal lifestyle choice to want to work across different organizations. And I think it's a win-win for organizations that can get someone quicker, free up the CEO or whoever the CX leader is to worry about the longer term stuff, and then take away a lot of the more transactional programs, projects, strategy items, whatever the case may be, and be able to do it quicker and a lot more efficiently, because that is a win-win for both sides, right? A fractional executive needs to come in and be able to deliver quickly, and the fractional wants to deliver quickly because you want to be able to do this across multiple clients and be able to make sure you're adding value. Plus, you want to keep your reputation going. So the company gets value very quickly and for a lot less cost and flexibility than they would with the risk and the onboarding timeframes of a full-scale executive, and then the absolute risk if that person leaves, and the ability to refill it and the gap that it leaves. So I think that is the sweet spot for fractionals at the moment. I think my hope and aspirations is that that will transition to bigger organizations as well, as they see the benefit of, again, something like the AI platform, where what you want to do is you want to be able to drive some experimentation on various initiatives. And it's very useful to get a fractional expert to drive that part of it while the CTO can focus on the big picture. But there's a culture shift yet to happen, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. So to become a fractional, there are some skills which are required. What do you think are those essential skills to become a successful fractional technology leader? Because every department has its own, like a CRO or CMO has a different skill set required to be a fractional. Technology is something totally different where everything is hands-on. You need somebody who can be present. Like some of the fractional roles can be done remote. Can you think of fractional technology leader being done remote, or what are the skills you think is required to be successful?
I almost work 100% remote for the most part. I mean, and I have a strong preference to being remote. Once you get a taste of doing remote, I mean, it's very hard to go back to the conventional sense. In terms of skill sets, it's fractionals, I think, is about specialization and deep expertise in technology, particularly. If you're an AI person, you cannot be a fractional for a cybersecurity role or blockchain. You can, but it's harder to make. You have to have some form of cross transferable skills. So one is, I think, specialization can make you stand out. Financial and commercial skills, cost management, project management, strategic investments, those sorts of things are clear. A network in the market, if you have it. And I think this probably applies to all fractionals, because companies are interested in, hey, who else do you know and what else can you do for me? And in technology, I think your connects could obviously be customers, but it could also be vendors, OEMs, other partners that can help you build a solution. Obviously, communication skills, and I think fundamentally an ability to be pleasant, have strong interpersonal skills, being able to identify the pulse of different types of customers in different organizations, how they want to work, and very strong innate sense of what value means. Technology is all about creating value for the end user, whoever that might be, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer. And is not about servers, infrastructure, cloud security, code. That has its place, but and particularly as a fractional, you want to be very clear about what the value proposition is that you bring and how you can help the client achieve the target or the value they're trying to bring. And I think the last bit is probably the hardest, and because I think it's an art form. And you can't develop it over time. You've got to have a keen sense of deriving business value from technology.
We are almost on the end. I have one question, and then we'll go to a fun element of rapid fire. The last question is, looking ahead, what emerging technologies or trends do you think will have the biggest impact on business in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's
I know it's a
an
broad
interesting
question.
question. It's a broad question, and barring the obvious sort of AI based technologies which are going to permeate, I think security is going to become more and more key. Security, particularly both external and internal, and in terms of private. So cybersecurity, I think, is a huge area that's going to grow. Blockchain is another technology. Blockchain has been a beautiful technology that's been waiting for enough business problems to arise for a more widespread use. I think the combination of AI as a base platform allows for allows for something like blockchain. I think those are probably the main areas. Obviously, there's different areas, and there are so many different domains of technology, medical tech. I think it's going to fundamentally come down to the trend we've been seeing over years now, which is the democratization of technology and technology becoming accessible to more and more people through the use of AI and data, whether it's in retail, medical, government, all of these industries. I think to me those are some of those really broad trends. And powering that, underlying that data infrastructure is going to get its time in the day. There's going to be some serious innovation there. And then the final way to answer that is, who the hell knows? ChatGPT just showed up one fine day and the world changed.
Well said. It was amazing. I think so. A lot of information to take. I wish we could extend it for another hour. I could talk, and you will be able to give lots of information, Rajiv. I think coming to the fun section, the rapid fire. You need to be very quick. I'll ask you a question, just one word answer. I'm sure you know the drill. So shall we start?
Yeah,
Favorite programming language?
Java,
Most used app on your phone?
email.
Best country you've visited for food?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Greece,
AI, exciting or terrifying?
exciting.
A favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Good food, music, TV,
Okay. Last, book or podcast for learning new things?
book.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. You were amazing. Thank you very much for joining our podcast and talking about technology. And it's great to have you here. Any last word before we wind up?
Just a note to say thank you very much for having me. It's been an absolutely wonderful experience. I would love to come back and do a full segment on AI, like we were talking
Yes.
about. So, I hope the viewers hopefully get some value out of this conversation. But I've immensely enjoyed myself. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv, once again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mr. Iyer's Digital Dialogue. If you enjoyed our conversation, make sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. Stay curious, keep innovating, and I'll catch you in the next one. Until then, take care and keep making an impact.